Good Green Guru, maybe. All right, I think that's now we got it. Great. Um, and so I, yeah, so I just started, taking orders and running trays and bringing people up and making coffee drinks and things like that. And then at some point, I started asking questions of the chef there. I want to learn how to make chicken pot pie, or I want to learn how to make mushroom paprikash, and all of those different things. And so I started cooking there, and my mom was a really tremendous cook, and so I had, some sense of how to cook, or what to eat and how to pair those things together. But that was really where I got my first sort of introduction to it. And Zingerman's is a really high volume restaurant, and Roger Bowser, who is the chef there, who kind of took me under his wing, was really starting to bring in a lot of local produce from local growers, which is something that's hard when you have a set menu that's available year round. And so a lot of that food would show up in the deli case or in different areas. And so I started to kind of see, like, oh, this is lettuce I've never seen before. It's a variety of romaine called speckled trout that has these like beautiful, red speckled leaves. And what is this thing, or what are these, beets that aren't pickled and deep red like my grandmother's relish tray pickles, and different things like that. And so that's where I first started to kind of fall in love with produce and learn the difference behind it. And then in 2006, I was ready to leave Ann Arbor and was trying to decide between either going into the Peace Corps or going to cooking school. And Roger, again, such a guiding force, said, well, you should check out this place in Ireland called Ballymaloe. And so I started looking at it, and it is a culinary school that's on a 100-acre working organic farm. And, the reason Roger kind of pushed me to that school is because he had spent some time there, and so he knew the quality of the education and how it was, really tied to what they were growing, and would give me sort of the fundamentals, because he had said, you've learned lots of things here, but there's a lot of things that we won't be able to teach you because of the nature of our business. And also it was only 12 weeks long, so it was, much shorter than a traditional culinary school, and it would give me an opportunity to travel and all those things. So I picked up and I went to Ballymaloe. And between Zingerman's and Ballymaloe, I really just got a world-class education in terms of how important local produce is and good quality ingredients to your food. So I spent 3 months cooking there, and then I moved back to Chicago, which is where my husband is from. And so I was living there with him, and working in farm to table restaurants throughout Chicago, working at Green City Market, which is a large farmers market there, and really kind of dove deep into the farm to table community. But there was always something that I felt like I couldn't like quite make the connections clearer. And so I was thinking, wouldn't it be amazing to have a restaurant that was on the farm, the way that Ballymaloe House was, the way I had seen some other places. And so my friend Jess and I decided to start a farm up in Northport, Michigan, which is about 20 miles north of Traverse City. His family has some farmland up there, and so they were like, "Well, it's all in cherries, but you can farm in the valley in between." And so for me, in 2009, we started the farm. I wanted to do it mostly to learn more about produce and how food is grown, because I had seen it in the kitchens, and I had a little bit growing up with a garden. And so we just jumped in and really went for it. And I spent about 3 years full-time farming, and it was a really watershed time for me because, you know, I I think I just there was about a 180-degree turn in my style of cooking. So I grew up in kitchens that were very focused on, nose to tail eating and not wasting anything, but really big meaty cuts, and, lots of bone marrow and liver and, things like that. And so I was just used to all of those things. And then as I started cooking these meals on our farm, we were growing vegetables, and so that's what I was working with. And I really fell in love with them, and fell in love with the diversity. I sort of joke sometimes that a vegetable can be anything from asparagus to a beet to winter squash to a tomato. And that's a really big spread of different ingredients. So, there's a lot of different textures and colors and flavors to play around with. Um, and so that's kind of how I got started cooking with vegetables. And then in 2013, we had a farmer's market on Wednesdays in Traverse City that was sort of our like lowest attended market. And so I had this brilliant idea where I was like, the food section of the Traverse City paper comes out on Wednesday. So maybe I can start writing articles about the things that we're growing and selling, and then we'll just sell all sorts of produce at that market. And it didn't really work that way. But I did get to start writing for the local paper up there. And that's really sort of the first foray into food writing that I had ever had. So I wrote a column every other week that was about something that we were growing on our farm, giving a little bit of context around how it's grown, what to look for your shopping for it. And I realized that that column was trying to take all of the questions that people would ask us at the farmers market stalls and really distill it out, to make it clear. Like, so many people would come up to the table and be like, okay, beets. What do I do with beets? Like, I've had pickled beets, but what else do I do? Or, why does kohlrabi look that way? And can I use the leaves to it at all? Or, what's the best way to store kale? And so, all of these questions were being asked week after week at our farmers market stall. And so I wanted to kind of distill them out into this column. And I think in the back of my mind, I had this idea that maybe this would become a book. And I thought we would just take all the columns, zip them up between a couple of covers, and slap it on the shelf, and we'd be done. And that is not what happened. So as Dennis was holding up, this is Ruffage, which is based on some of the columns, but is a much deeper dive than I was ever able to do for the Traverse City Record Eagle. And the idea that I wanted to put together was sort of just this resource guide, so that people could get produce wherever they get it. If you have a CSA, great. If you go to the farmer's market, great. If you go to a grocery store, great. If you are, gifted a big basket full of stuff from your farming neighbor or your gardening neighbor, great. You have all of these things, and then you can know what to do with them. And as in kitchens, what I found was that we were using the same ingredients over and over again, especially in the northern Midwest, where we have a sort of a limited cadre of things that we grow. And so every year it's asparagus time, and every year the eggplant come back, and wanting to really celebrate that, but not make the same thing every asparagus season or every eggplant season. And so the way that I look at it is sort of, you take the ingredient, and then you apply some sort of preparation technique. So if it's, roasting something or poaching something or grilling it or having it raw, that's how you're processing it. And then everything else that goes with it are sort of accessories. And I think about it sort of like, I guess it's that old adage, the little black dress that goes with everything, and you can wear it with like a jean jacket and sneakers and have one outfit, or you can put pearls and red heels on and have a totally different outfit. Well, that's sort of the same idea with this produce. So the way that the book is organized is that it is organized alphabetically. Each vegetable is a chapter. And I always kind of describe the book to folks as though it's like an NCAA bracket in reverse. And so, you start with the winner, the vegetable. So, that's our hero. And then we apply different preparation techniques. And then after that, we apply all of the different flavors. And so you have this whole, kind of Penelope of different options for these 29 vegetables that are in the book. And I think that the beet chapter is probably the most representative of what I wanted to do, in the sense that there's an opening essay, which is very much grounded in the tradition of the newspaper column. In it, there's a notes box that gives people how to select it, how to store it, what other things to do with it. And then there's two different preparation techniques. So there's steam roasted, which is my favorite way to cook a root ball of beets. And it's just a little bit of water. You chuck them into a roasting pan and then put them into the oven, and they sort of steam and roast. And then you can just rub the skins off as soon as they're tender and then use them how you will. And there's a base recipe that fully articulates out, what to do. That is a salad with some smoked whitefish, as well as sour cream and sunflower seeds and a little bit of dill. So very kind of like Eastern European in flavor combination, but using smoked fish that's so important to the food culture of the Northern Midwest. But then there's also 3 different variations. So you could do, I would probably make that in, say, the springtime with the dill and the smoked fish. But then there's also a recipe for beets with citrus, so oranges and feta and some pistachios and some mint. And you could do that in the winter. Like right now, the citrus is so good right now. And so that's when I would make that. And then there's also one that has wheat berries and dried cherries and kind of a heartier grain bowl. Or you could pair it with like apples and walnuts and parsley. So everything on the plate is different, but the beets stay the same. And that was kind of the idea of teaching how that flow can work. But then you can also take those beets and puree them with some olive oil and make a really like deep red beet puree. And then you could use that to, the recipe that's in the book is to dress pasta. So you have this like magenta pasta that's paired with pickled raisins and poppy seeds. Again, kind of very Ukrainian, Russian in temperament. Or you could take that same beet puree and add it to a can of white beans and blend it up and make a hummus. Or you could smear it on a sandwich with some goat cheese and some turkey and apples and have a bright red sandwich. Or you could thin it out and make a borscht with it. So there's all of these different things that don't look anything alike that are made from that same beet puree. And that's how the book came together. So it was a lot of personal stories about either how to grow these things that were culled from, our time growing vegetables up in Northport, or different stories of other things around it. And yeah, so that's the book. And to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about with these different variations and how to swap something out, the cooking demo that I recorded for you is from the cauliflower chapter. So it's how to take 1 head of cauliflower and turn it into 4 different salads. And so I think Dennis is going to pull that up in a second. And just remember too, that if you have any questions along the way, feel free to enter them into the chat function. Otherwise, we'll come back at the end and I'll answer them live.
Great. That was fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now, actually, I'll mute myself so you don't hear me talking to myself as I get this started here. Now, do you all see, anybody just give a little thumbs up? Do you see the screen here that I'm sharing of Abra's video? Make it a little bigger there. See it? Perfect. Yay.
We're not getting our audio.
Yeah, I can't hear it either. So I wonder if maybe you can't be on mute.
I just unplugged myself there. Let's.
Tomato fresh mozzarella salad.
Still nothing?
Now I can hear it. It's pretty quiet, so I don't know if maybe there's a way to make it a bit louder and make it go to full screen. Flavors and colors, and really makes for a whole meal. That said, there's only so many vegetables that we generally have on hand, and it's middle of the week meal. You're going to pull together a big feast of cardoons and whatever else fancy thing you don't see that often. Maybe you are, and that's okay too. But for me, I tend to rely on things like cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, the really like hearty vegetables that you can buy if you're going to the store only every couple of weeks and that are going to store in your fridge just fine. And cauliflower is maybe one of my favorites of those because it is endlessly changeable. It has a very neutral flavor, but a nice crunch to it. And so you can make all sorts of different things out of it. And my favorite way to have it is just having it raw, like you would on a veggie platter. But instead of having it in the little florets that we've always seen, shaving it into thin wafers. So if you're taking a head of cauliflower like this one, I've cut it in half down the side and then cut it again into quarters. And that just gives you a nice flat surface that you can be working with. So with your knife, I like to get in and cut away the core and then peel off these leaves. These leaves are good to eat if they're not especially brown, like these have a little bit of kind of that like slipperiness, then I would pull them off and you could saute them in a pan with some olive oil, a little bit of onion and white wine, and have that as a side too. For right now, for our purposes today, we're going to discard them. And then to shave it thinly, all you're doing is just cutting it really thin. So you can use a knife, you could use a mandolin, really anything. And I like to just go slow, hold your cauliflower with your free hand, and it's going to shred a little bit and it's going to fly, but that's just how it goes. It's a little bit like a kitchen confetti. And I like to just kind of slowly go down the sides so that you get these nice kind of cross sections of it. So you're getting lots of different textures. So ones that are thicker like this and thinner like that, that's all fine. They're all going to go together and give you some textural difference within the cauliflower salad itself. So as you go, if a stray one like this one falls off, just flip it over. And with this, it's a little bit easier to handle, so you can go a touch faster. When it starts to get unruly, wobbling around on that side, just give it a flip and go through again. And if that feels like too much, then you can just break down the individual florets. So that one head of cauliflower, 1/4 of the head of cauliflower, has already given us a nice pile of shaved veg that would probably feed 2 people as a side. And if you were to combine that with some beans or something like that, it's going to be a full entree portion. So for salad number 1 of our variations on a shaved cauliflower theme, I really love smoked whitefish mayo. It is effectively just making a mayonnaise, whizzing up an egg, drizzling in some oil, a squeeze of lemon until it makes a nice thick mayonnaise, and then adding some smoked whitefish or tuna or mackerel, anything like that, and blending it up. It's an Italian condiment. They call it tomato. I call it mayo. And so what we're going to do is take a little bit of our shaved cauliflower, put it into a bowl, and then with some olive oil, just give it a nice little drizzle and a pinch of salt so that you're seasoning kind of each component along the way and just giving it a nice little toss to coat the cauliflower in a little bit of that oil and salt. Now, as soon as the salt hits the cauliflower, it will start to pull some of the water from it. So better to do kind of just before serving. We've got our plate down, and what I'm going to do is spoon a little bit of this smoked whitefish mayo on the bottom of the plate, which is where the richness is. And then heap the cauliflower right on top. Do a couple leaves of arugula. You could also use something like a radicchio, any sort of kind of slightly bitter, peppery green. Endive, frisee, any of those chicories would be great. And then a little bit more arugula over the top. I like to do just a little squeeze of lemon. And you could certainly toss the arugula and the cauliflower together It's easier to control how it looks on the plate if you do it in separate layers. But if that doesn't matter to you, toss it all up in a big bowl and be just fine. And then to finish it, just a few pumpkin seeds. You could also use something like sunflower seeds or some chopped up almonds or pecans, things like that. And then you've got a really nice little salad that would go great as a lunch in the summertime or alongside any number of other dishes for a main course. So for salad number 2, we're gonna make another cauliflower salad, but this time scooping up some of the cauliflower, and instead of dressing it with olive oil, we're gonna dress it with some chili oil, which is just neutral oil, so a vegetable oil, soy, canola, this is grapeseed oil, and you heat up about a 1/4 cup, add a couple tablespoons of chili flakes to it, and then let them kind of fry in that oil. Take it off the heat, add some more neutral oil to drop the temperature so you don't burn the chili flakes, and then let it steep. So this has been steeping for about a week or so, just been on the shelf and doesn't need to be refrigerated, and you can just spoon it over any type of hot sauce, sort of like a chili crisp that you would see a lot of grocery stores, like a sambal or sriracha kind of part of the thing. And then we've got the cauliflower, chili flakes, some dates, which will give it some sweetness to pair against the spice of the chili. And then this is just a bunch of herbs. So I would normally use either cilantro or parsley or something like that. This also has some radish microgreens in it, but you could use any type of greenery that you've got, even something like baby lettuces, anything that's gonna have a bunch of flavor to it. Little pinch of salt went in as well. And just stir it up so that you're getting an even coating of the salt and the chili oil. And I really love something like this. And let's just do one big pile of it. So I really love a salad like this to go with something like black beans, quesadillas. You could have it with like grilled summer squash, and anything that's going to have kind of a creamy note to go alongside the spice and the sweetness of this salad. That is salad number 2. This is shaved cauliflower with dates, chili oil, and herbs. For salad number 3, yet again, taking some cauliflower and putting it into a bowl. We're going to dress it with some olive oil and salt. We're not really making a dressing in and of itself because we're going to add these roasted cherry tomatoes, which have acidity in them as well. So that's where you're going to get the pop of brightness for this salad. And this is another one that we're going to kind of build in layers so that we can see all of the different elements together. So we've got our roasted cherry tomatoes, our baby kale, and then also some breadcrumbs. So on the plate, we'll start with a little bit of baby kale. Just a couple leaves. And again, if you're at like a picnic or something, it would be ridiculous to build all of these as individual salads. So just toss it all into a bowl and stir it around and that'll be just fine. So a little bit of kale, little drizzly, little pinch of salt, spoonful of the cauliflower. And then a couple dots of these cherry tomatoes. So these are just cherry tomatoes that have been roasted at about 350 degrees with some olive oil in them until they burst, and then their liquid reduces. You could also use fresh cherry tomatoes if you have them, whatever sort of tomato-y kind of product that you have. I love using these, especially in the winter time. I'll try to put up as many into the freezer as I can in the summer, and then pull them out in the winter for that kind of fresh, bright tomato flavor. So again, a little bit more cauliflower on top, the kale. A couple more tomatoes. And then I feel like every single salad, I can't think of one right now that isn't better with a little bit of garlic breadcrumbs over the top. It gives you a nice crunchy texture, a little bit of richness from the garlic and the oil, and then the heat of that. So Then we'll just brush in all those crumbs. And that is salad number 3. It's shaved cauliflower, roasted cherry tomatoes, garlic breadcrumbs, and some kale. This is a garam masala yogurt or curry yogurt. It basically just takes curry powder, fry it in a little bit of oil to bloom the spices, and then add it to the yogurt so that you're getting kind of a nice yellowy color, and it's really perfuming all of that yogurt, along with a pinch of salt. We're going to stir that up. Evenly coat the cauliflower. Like I was saying before, cauliflower is such a mild flavor that it really pairs well with things that are stronger in the sense of something like a garam masala, like a chili oil, like those roasted cherry tomatoes that are so flavorful, and they really just need a kind of sidekick to it, and the cauliflower can play that role. So to make our salad, got our plate down, and we'll spoon it into the center. And we would do a couple of herbs. This is a mixture, again, of cilantro and microgreens, but it would be perfectly at home with parsley, or even a little bit of basil would be nice with this one. A little bit more cauliflower on top. And some extra greens. And then over the top, I'm going to scatter, these are pan roasted chickpeas. So chickpeas out of a can, a little bit of hot oil into a frying pan, fry them up with some salt so they get golden brown and a little bit crunchy on the outside, but still soft and creamy on the inside. You could also do them in an oven. So get a hot oven, maybe 400, 350 degrees, and then toss them with some oil and salt and let them bake until they're crisp. You could also use something like chopped almonds, crushed pecans, anything that's really going to give you kind of that crunchy but creamy texture with it too. And so this is our 4th salad, shaved cauliflower with curried yogurt, crispy chickpeas, and a bunch of herbs. So that's it. That's how you can take a single head of cauliflower, shave it thinly, and then make any number of different dishes. You've got everything from spicy and sweet with chili oil and dates, savory and rich with the smoked whitefish mayo, arugula, and pepitas. You've got a curried yogurt with crispy chickpeas and herbs, and then also the really tangy roasted cherry tomatoes with breadcrumbs and kale. So anything you want to do with them, you've got cauliflower for days. We use the same vegetables year in and year out, but it never has to be the same meal.
That was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
Such creative use of cauliflower. I'm a cauliflower fan now.
Well, I'm glad. It's really one of my favorite vegetables. I was thinking about it. I was at Sawyer Garden Center earlier today to get some produce, and I was just like, wait, do I have a head of cauliflower at home? I think I might have 2. I feel like I always have cauliflower and red cabbage, and so I held off buying it. And but yeah, it's always kind of around. But I was just going through the chat stuff, and there's a question from Emily asking, what are some of the things you love to grow at the farm that are hard to find in a standard grocery store and might be worth putting in a home garden? I mean, I think that some of my favorite things are, well, I think of it kind of in 2 categories. Like, if you go through a seed catalog and you see stuff that you haven't seen before, I would give that a shot. I think there's kind of space for endless kind of just like trying stuff out in a home garden because you don't have to sell it. And so, you know, it kind of can come and go. But I really think that the best thing people can plant are fresh herbs. You know, they're expensive. Those little like plastic packets are usually like $2.50, $3 for like a half an ounce of something. Aside from parsley and cilantro, which is usually a little bit more affordable. But so I think herbs add a tremendous amount of flavor to really anything everything that they add, but I often don't use them in such quantity that I need to buy a whole big amount. So being able to just like snip a little bit as you go is really great. I also think it's worth putting a plant of cherry tomatoes in. And so I really love having a tomato plant that I can just like walk by and pick a couple of things. Things that require some volume, like if I don't tend to grow like loose leaf lettuce or things like that. I do really love growing potatoes, which is a really easy sort of foolproof thing to grow. You just take a seed potato, which is, spoiler alert, it's just a regular potato that hasn't been sprayed with something that will stop it from sprouting. And then you plunk it in the ground after the first threat of frost is gone. So that's usually in our area like early June, and then you cover it up. It'll send up a plant, and then you can kind of do it two different ways. Some people will hill up potatoes with dirt. At our farm, we always just use straw, and so we would tuck straw underneath the leaves. And there's two reasons for that. One is you want to keep the sunlight off from the potatoes that are growing underneath the potato tubers. Otherwise, they will go green on you, which is, I mean, they're not bad. If you eat it in quantity, it's technically poisonous, but you have to eat a lot to get sick. But it just isn't great. And then also the potato beetles will come up from the soil and they will find the plants there. And so the straw it disguises the smell of the plant, so they can't find it as easily. And so that's the only real trouble we've ever had with growing potatoes, has been the dreaded potato beetle, which you have to like either pick off, or you'll just come out and see all the leaves have been munched or whatever. But so I really love growing potatoes. What else? I also think winter squash, some things that take up, if you have a lot of space, they take up a tremendous amount of space, but I find it difficult to find some of the stranger heirloom varieties of squash, and I really love them. Plus they store really well. And so, you can bring all of your squash in before the first frost and then store them in a root cellar or in a cold, basement, and they'll last you for a good long time. Whereas if you're trying to grow something like lettuce, it's such a finite window. I also think if you do have a lot of space to grow, things like radishes are really fun because they're really quick. They take about 28 days at peak at optimal growing conditions from seed to harvesting. So, and that was one of the vegetables that I just remember being like, wow, you can grow this, and you can eat this. And we would always joke at the farm that we would, say, oh, it's like store-bought. Like that's like something you would get at the store. And that was a sign that it was good. And then at some point we realized, wait, you actually can't get this stuff at our grocery store up in Northport. And so I think it's a little bit of both. But yeah, it's just really fun. And radishes are a real hallmark of that. Somebody else in the chat function was asking, do you roast your tomatoes before you freeze them? I do. And you can do it either way. But if you roast them first and then freeze them, they're going to be significantly less in volume, so they'll take up less space in your freezer. So that's probably the first reason to do it. You can freeze tomatoes, just like pull them off the plant and put them straight into a bag and freeze them. They're just going to take up a lot of space. I do that when I have a lot of refrigeration. Like if I have an extra chest freezer, I'll do that with some of the canning tomatoes if I don't have time to can them. And then they just live in there. And then when you thaw them, they just slip right out of their skin. So my mom, when she would make like canned tomato sauce, would always peel the tomatoes by shocking them in boiling water and then slipping them out of their skins. I find that by the time tomato canning season comes around in like September, I just like can't be bothered. And so I feel like I either do what I was taught to do in restaurant kitchens, which is I just put all of the plum tomatoes into a pot, little bit of water and salt, bring it up to a boil, and then I pass all of that through a food mill, which will pull the skins and the seeds and the cores out. Or I will just chuck them all into a bag and freeze them. And then when they thaw, I'll take the skins out, and then you just have like the liquid and the flesh, and you can process that down into sauce. And then Zena's here. I didn't even realize. I know Zena from, she helped build a kitchen that I got to run for a while in Chicago. But so what do I like to pickle besides cucumbers? Pretty much everything. I love pickled beets and pickled carrots, pickled red onions, really anything. And I think the only things I don't really pickle are some of the brassicas. Like I actually don't really love pickled radishes unless they're a real quick pickle, because they tend to, you know how when you like cut up radishes and then you store them in a container and then open the container, it's kind of stinky. I feel like that flavor carries through with pickled brassicas. So, and then with pickling, my kind of go-to pickle ratio is usually equal parts, like depending on the quality of your vinegar, equal parts vinegar and water. And I usually do a quart of vinegar, a quart of water, um, a quarter cup of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of salt. And so I'll just bring that up and just pour it over. And now I do a lot of just quick pickling in the fridge, instead of water processing, although you can water process too. And then Devin Sullivan asks, what's your favorite thing to do with artichoke? And why can't I get it to fruit even though I plant faithfully, comes back tall and bushy every year? Well, that's interesting. So my favorite thing to do with artichoke is just to steam them until they're tender. And then I will I mean, I really love garlic butter with them, and I just like pull the leaves off and dip it in the garlic butter and eat that. In Ruffage, there is a recipe for bagna cauda, which is an Italian condiment that translates to warm bath. And that is a very garlicky, it's like equal parts garlic and anchovies, and then equal parts butter and olive oil. And so you kind of melt the anchovy and the garlic in that olive oil and butter, and then it's a warm dressing that goes over a bunch of different vegetables. So I do really love having that with artichoke. Yeah, that's pretty much what we do. I don't tend to get those little spring artichokes anymore. We would get them in the restaurants, shipped from California, but here I'm usually getting those big globe artichokes. And then probably the reason you can't get it to fruit, although I don't have a ton of experience growing artichoke, but I just know that they have to be forced. So they are from a different climate for than here, and so they need to go, they're biennials, and so they will grow the plant the first year, and then they have to go through a winter, and then in the second year they will send up the flower shoot, and the artichoke that we eat is technically the flower of the plant. And but the problem is that if it goes through winter, like our winter, they die. And so what you end up doing is getting the plant, at least how I've seen it done at farms, is you get the plant from the seed company or whatever as a first year plant. It's already gone through its first year, put it into a cooler, wrapped up, and then you transplant it for its second year, and it just tricks the plant into thinking that it's gone through a winter. Presumably you could do that yourself, but I've never tried that. Yeah, so that's artichoke. Yeah. What other questions do you guys have? I should, while we're everybody's here, and because we are local to this area, for those of you who don't know Grainer Farm, we're just down on Warren Woods Road, between Pardee and basically Flynn. So kind of on your way to Galeen, and we have an online farm store that is open on Fridays. So we do online ordering right now because of the pandemic. So the store is currently open, and then it will close kind of Friday morning, and then pickup is on Friday. And while we have only a few things coming from the farm, we do have winter lettuces, which we've never grown before, as well as some storage crops like potatoes. And we brought in some crops from other farmers, as well as local kind of meats and cheeses and dairies and things like that. And then there's some things coming out of our kitchen as well. And so that's been a really fun way to pivot since we stopped doing the dining program with the concerns around COVID, that we've been able to make that. So I know that there's some exciting stuff from the kitchen right now, including chili oil that's coming from our cayenne peppers from this summer and different things like that. So, and then Mary asked if we'll be hosting dinners this summer. So we are, part of the other reason why we didn't host dinners last year was because we're in the midst of building out a new space for it. And so that space is still currently under construction, but as soon as that construction is finished, we will be hosting meals again. And like truly can't wait to feed all of you again. I just like, I miss it so much. And, you know, the meals that we host are, we call them experiential dining. They're a ticketed event. So you buy tickets on the website, you come to the farm, there'll be a tour of the farm so you can see our growing spaces and see what we do and why we do it. And then we sit down and we do a menu that is unique to that event. So we've never repeated a full menu, and we write those menus based exclusively on what we're growing. And the reason, I mean, I miss these dinners because I love feeding people. That's why I work in food. But also, you know, 100 years ago, 30% of our population were farmers, and today it's about 3%. And so there's just this disconnect with how food is grown and who's growing it, and what those things are from when you're, for a lot of us, myself included. And so the thing that I find so special about these meals is that you really get to see and participate in the production of your food. And it's a different way to participate than, I mean, we have a CSA, which will be launching again soon for this year. And, you know, that's a real way to participate with the farm as well. But it's just really such a treat to have people walk through a field where some radishes were just pulled from the ground and then see them on the plate. So that's really our motivation. And that's why we also just can't wait to be able to open up our farm again. You know, for health concerns, we did not allow any self-guided tours this year, have people coming out and seeing the chickens, and it's not as much fun for us either. So we're really looking forward to it. And then let me just scan real quick and scroll through and see if there's any other questions. And other than Grainer, do you have any other tips on sourcing produce locally that you'd be willing to share publicly? Yes, of course. So there are a couple of new farms in the area that are really exciting. There is Wild Coyote Farm, which is over in Berrien Springs. Shelly is doing really great stuff there. And they also have an on-farm farm store, so that is helpful. And then there is Rainfield Farm, which is a little bit closer to me. I'm in Galeen right now, but we're down there in New Carlisle, I think. And so they have an on-farm farm store as well. There's Frillman Farms, which is also in Berrien Springs. And then also, you know, Rye Hook at Turkey Foot Farm. He's down in LaPorte, but it's like really fairly close to New Buffalo. He has some of the best chickens I've ever had. And if you ever, he has like a little stall in his family's Hooks Pottery and Paper store that's there. So that's a really great resource. And then there's a lot of other people who are raising animals, you know, certainly like pork and lamb in this area. And we are bringing in a lot of those folks' products into Grainer. So our goal for the farm stand is to really be a whole meal offering and to really showcase a lot of these growers. So that's a good place to go to. I'll keep thinking about it. I know there's some more hydroponic growers that are doing lettuces and stuff. I've seen both at Barney's Sawyer Garden Center and at Martin's. There's one out of Indiana for sure. But you know, there's more and more of those things. So I've always just really relied on Sawyer Garden Center for the amazing produce that they bring in, especially all summer. The fruit that they bring in is so good. So that's been really nice. And then let's see what else. People are asking about where they can buy the cookbook. I mean, anywhere books are sold. I mean, it's on Amazon, it's at local bookstores. Someone's mentioning Forever Books in St. Joe. That's a great resource. You know, we have it at Grainer, so you can order it when you order your produce and your meat and cheeses. It's in the merch section. And then also, honestly, yeah, the library they have it on their shelves, and so you can check it out there and see if you want to go from there. And then the bread program. So the other thing that I've been really excited about this year is that Scott, you came to a brunch, I think. I recognize that name. So the bread program is great. We've been producing bread for the farmers or for the farm stand all year. This last year, we're doing all of our bread is coming out of our wood oven. And so it's been real fun and figuring it out. And the thing that was the most exciting is that we were using all of our own flour from that was grown on our farm and milled down at Janie's Mill in Southern Illinois for a couple months this year. We're out of it now, but we're getting more in that was just milled shortly. So yeah, that will continue, and we'll always have our country sourdough loaf. And then I've been using the time that we have in the winter when it's not quite as busy to work on some other specialty bakes. So as the season continues, we'll hopefully have more variety of those things too. So yeah, and it looks like Good Green Guru, you've got your hand raised. So if maybe you can unmute and ask a question or type it in. I tried to just make it so you can unmute.
Yeah, actually, I made you a co-host, so if you find her before I do, you could unmute her too, Abra.
Okay. Well, we'll just keep going, but yeah, so you know, Dennis, thank you so much again for having me and everyone for turning out. If there's any other questions, I'll enter my Grainer email into the chat function. You're always welcome to ask me a question or send me an email. You know, one of the things I really love about Grainer is that it was started to be a farm camp for kids, which will be coming back this summer. And so there's this real emphasis on education and really having people come to the farm to learn about it and share recipes and share all of those things. And so I feel like my job as a chef is to really be sure that people can ask questions that they want to. So I'll enter my email in. It's also on our website, and feel free to ask me any questions that you have if they come up. If you buy the book and you have a question about how one of the recipes works, like, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm on social media too. And yeah, that's the whole point, is to get people excited and cooking at home. So, and Miss Amy Allen is here. I did not know that. That's so nice. Well, and everyone, thanks. It's so fun to see all of your names in it. So thank you for that. And
Abra, thank you. And I will tell you, it has been so delightful to see the interchange amongst folks in chat, and that is, it's just been delightful. So thank you for making your craft, your work accessible. And so I also did want to let folks know I did include the Grainer Farms website. I put that, typed that into the chat too. And there was a comment earlier about having missed part due to our, well, I would say my technical problem at the beginning, that with the volume, that some folks I think missed a little bit of your intro. I wanted to let everyone know that Abra has agreed to let us post the recording. So we've recorded the program, and so we'll be able to make it available through the website, and maybe on our YouTube channel. The library will make it available so we can watch it again.
Great. Well, thank you again, Dennis, for all you're doing. And, you know, I think that libraries are really pioneering a lot of these new tools that we're using. And, you know, it's just such a nice thing to be able to feel like we're getting together with folks on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. So thank you to everyone for coming, for organizing it. And we hope to see you at the farm soon.
Very good. Thank you so much, Abra. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.